Okay, let's tackle this lovely algebra word problem. And let me go ahead and quickly read it to you. It says the length of a rectangle is 2 meters less than 3 times its width, and the perimeter of the rectangle is 60 meters. What are the length and width of the rectangle? So obviously we're dealing with a rectangle, and we're going to need some algebra to solve this problem. So this would be an algebra word problem, which in turn makes most students' expressions look like this. They're like an algebra word problem, anything but an algebra word problem. Maybe you'd rather do 100 push-ups or run 10 miles in a 100-degree sun. Anything but an algebra word problem. But we got to really relax about these algebra word problems. I know a lot of you are, intimidated by them, but really an algebra word problem is simply an application of the skills that you've been learning in algebra. Now, hopefully, you've been learning these skills because if you haven't learned the skills required to solve these word problems, then obviously, this is going to be very difficult. But what we have to do is just break these problems down step by step, and I'm going to show you how to do that, exactly as I just said, step by step. Now, one thing that you can't be searching for is like this perfect one formula, one strategy to solve word problems because every word problem is a little bit different. However, in algebra, if you know how to solve one type of problem, there's typically kind of like a family of problems. There's going to be related problems that will use similar techniques. So, how do you get better at word problems? Just by doing more word problems. Basically, that's it. Now, if this is the first word problem video you've seen from me, by the way, thank you for checking in on this video. I have many other word problems, algebra word problems, in my algebra playlist on my YouTube channel. So, I would definitely encourage you to check those out. But obviously, for this particular video, we're going to focus on this one problem. Now, I am going to give you some general guidance on how to solve any algebra word problem, and then we'll get into the actual steps to solve this specific one here in just 1 second. But first, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is John. I'm the founder of TabletClass Math. I'm also a middle and high school math teacher. And over several years, I've constructed what I like to believe is one of the best online math help programs there is. Of course, I'll let you be the judge of that. You can check out my math help program by following the link in the description of this video. But basically, I have 100 plus different math courses. I have all the main courses like pre-algebra, Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2. I'm going to be launching pre-calculus here shortly. But I also do a lot in the area of test preparation. So if you're studying for exams like the GED, SAT, ACT, GRE, GMAT, ALEX, CLEP exam, AccuPlacer, maybe a teacher certification exam like the Praxis or a nursing entrance exam. All these exams have pretty significant mathematics on them, and if you don't get through the math sections, you're not going to do well on the exam. So obviously, that's going to have serious negative implications for you. We don't want that to happen. So just go to my site, check out my full course catalog. I should have what you're looking for. If I do not, please drop me a line and I'll help you out the best I can. I also do a lot with independent learners like homeschoolers. I have a great homeschool learning system. And then obviously I help those of you that are struggling in your current math courses. But one of the things that I can't do for you that you must do for yourself if you're serious about improving in mathematics, that is taking notes. So over decades of teaching math, one thing is apparent to me. Those students who have fantastic math notes almost always do very well in math. And the reverse is true. Those students who don't take any notes, like I did way back in the good old 1980s. Well, actually, I did take notes, but my notes looked like this. There were scribble scratch. And then if I was writing stuff on my paper, it was typically some note to my best friend sitting next to me saying, hey, what are we going to do this weekend? It had nothing to do with the actual courses. So believe me when I tell you, I was far from being a perfect student or a good student, even in high school. It took me years to figure out how to be a good student. Then obviously, as a teacher, you see, all those mistakes that you once made. And I paid a price for it, just like people who do not take notes. You have to take note taking extremely serious because note taking is all about remaining focused. If you cannot stay focused, you will not be able to learn any subject, okay, math or anything else. So your notes is a direct reflection of how well you're focusing. Okay, so just take a look at your notes, and that's going to be give you a good indication of how well you've probably been learning the material or paying attention. But as you're improving in your note taking, and most of you could stand some improvement, I offer detailed, comprehensive math notes to include pre-algebra, algebra 1, geometry, algebra 2, and trigonometry. You can find links to those notes in the description of this video. All right, now, here's our problem. If you think you know how to do this problem or you want to give it a try on your own, that's awesome. I would definitely encourage you to do so. Just pause the video because I'm going to get into the solutions here in a second. But first, let me give you some general guidelines to any algebra word problem. So the first thing is you want to read the problem. Now, a lot of you are probably saying, okay, Mr. YouTube math teacher, obviously I need to read the problem. Well, that's not what I'm talking about. You need to read the problem like 5 times. You got to read it and reread it and then reread it and pull information out, double check, triple check. So don't read the problem once, okay, and then be like, okay, I'm off to the races. I'm going to do this, this, and this, and here's my answer. That's not going to cut it, okay? You're going to have to just settle your mind down, read it, get a feel for what the problem is saying, and then just go back and just pick out information from the problem. So expect to read the problem frequently. Now, the second thing is, as you're reading the problem and rereading it, you want to be looking to build a model. Okay, that's the next thing. Now, a model could be some sort of like sketch. It could be like a table. It could be anything that helps you model the information in the problem, okay? And this is important because this helps us kind of relate the information, all right? And oftentimes we have to use our model to help us build equations. So modeling is very important, okay? Don't skip this step. And again, stylistically, this could be different for different students, okay? One person's model could be different than another student's model, same problem, but both effective and both good as long as it is modeling the information in some ways. You should strive to do this. All right, the next thing is you want to assign some variables, okay? A variable or variables depending on the situation. So in other words, we're going to say, okay, let's let x equal to whatever. Now, it doesn't have to be x, it could be any other variable, but you have to, we are talking about algebra here, and algebra involves variables, so we need to decide what our variables are going to represent. And when you build these models, it's oftentimes very easy to kind of see what you want to let your variables equal to, and then you got to kind of declare them, okay? Especially if you're, if you're doing this on a test or a quiz, your teacher wants to see this process, okay? Believe me, you just don't want to read the problem and be like, here is my answer, or you're not going to, even if you have the right answer, if you don't have the work to back it up, your teacher is probably not going to give you any credit at all. But anyways, so you want to assign your variable, okay, or variables, depending on the situation. All right, now the next thing is, once you have your variables assigned, you want to build some equations, an equation or equations, depending on the situation. So we have some variables, but in order, the only way we can solve for that variable is to build an equation in algebra. Okay, so how do we build those equations? Well, you're going to have to go back to your sketch, your model, whatever the case is, and you may need to know some formulas, pretty common formulas in mathematics, things with like, for example, rate times time is equal to distance. In this particular problem, you're going to need to know the formula for perimeter, but real basic kind of common things. It's pretty typical that we may have to use a formula, but oftentimes you'll be able to see an equation or the relationship by looking at your model. All right, now the next thing is you want to go ahead and solve the equation from step 4, okay? Now at this point, a lot of students, they get excited, like, look at me, I solved the equation. I'm done, Mr. Teacher, here's my answer. Don't be so quick, okay? Because oftentimes when you solve the equation, it doesn't answer the actual question. That's not the whatever the question is asking, the specific, question, you may need to take an additional step. So sometimes when you solve for a variable, you're not done yet. You have to look at that and be like, okay, did I answer the question correctly? And make any adjustments or take whatever last steps you need to do to answer the question, and to be like, okay, now that's fully answered and you're good to go. All right, now for those of you out there like, okay, if you think you can now solve this problem with these steps, here it is. There's the problem again, if you want to go and pause the video and try it. Okay, so let's get into it. I'm going to solve this now. All right, so again, let's take a look at the problem real fast. We have the length of a rectangle. So obviously we're done with the rectangle is 2 meters less than 3 times its width. All right, so we're going to have to figure out what that means. But we also know that the perimeter of the rectangle is 60 meters. Interesting. What is the question? Well, what are the length and width of the rectangle? So I'm looking for the dimensions of the rectangle. So why don't we just start like with the rectangle? Let's just sketch out a rectangle to start modeling this information. Now you can see I've already done some work here, but let's go back to the problem again. Remember, we have to keep reading it. So the first sentence is the length of a rectangle is. Now this word is a key word in algebra. The word is always the equal sign. So the length of a rectangle is, so we have the length, okay, is equal to what? Well, it's 2 meters less than 3 times the width. So boy, I would like to, if I knew the width, I could probably build some sort of relationship here. So I don't know what the width is, but let's go ahead and assign the variable x for the width, because the length is going to be dependent upon the width. So let's let x equal the width of the rectangle. So now, thinking about that, I said, okay, the length of the rectangle is 2 meters less than 3 times the width. Now, I just let x equal to the width, so it's going to be it's going to be 2 meters less than 3 times the width. So if the width is x, 3 times the width would be 3x, and 2, so let's just double check this. 2 meters less than 3 times the width. This is 3 times the width, and this is 2 meters less. So the length is equal to 3x minus 2 if x represents our width. Okay, so this is a good illustration of us reading and rereading the problem. This is what I'm talking about. You have to go back and pick out information from this. So here is a pretty good model. Okay, so here I have a rectangle. I know this is the length, this is the width. Now we're going to get to the second half of this. We're going to have to figure out how to build an equation. And all these algebra word problems will give you that information. So it says the perimeter of the rectangle is, okay, there's that secret word again, is, all right, that means equal. So the perimeter of the rectangle is equal to 60 meters. So the perimeter is 60 meters. So now it's a good idea to know what the perimeter is equal to, or what the perimeter is, in fact. So the perimeter of a rectangle or a square, it doesn't make a difference, any figure, is when we add up the lengths of the sides of that figure. So here I would add up this, add up that, add up this, and add up this, these lengths, and that would be the perimeter. So for a rectangle, this happens to be, if this side is x long, this side is also x long, and then here our length is 3x minus 2, so this side would be 3x minus 2 as well. So the perimeter is going to be 2 times the width, okay? In other words, I have an x here and an x here, so that you have, just take out the width, whatever it is, and multiply by 2, and the same thing for the length. So this is our formula for the perimeter, 2 times the width plus 2 times the length. Now, if you didn't even know that, you could just be like, okay, x plus 3x minus 2 plus x and another 3x minus 2, that is my perimeter, okay? That's the same thing as this formula. So even if you didn't know this, but you understood what the perimeter was equal to, that's still fine, okay? All right, so here, the perimeter is equal to twice the width plus twice the length. So remember the width we said was equal to x, and the length was equal to 3x minus 2. So I could plug these into this equation now. So the perimeter is equal to 2 times x, okay, so that's the width, plus 2 times the length, which is 3x minus 2. Very important that you use parentheses, these grouping symbols, because that's going to make a difference when we solve this equation. Always use parentheses when you're substituting in for for variables in algebra. Okay, now I also know, so I know the perimeter is equal to this, okay, and I also know it's equal to 60 meters, that the perimeter is 60 meters, so I can equate these two. this thing is then therefore equal to this. So I can just go ahead and set up an equation. And that's what I've been looking to do here, because without an equation, I won't be able to solve for the variable. So here is my perimeter, and it's equal to 60. Okay, 60 meters. We'll have to keep that in mind, but we can kind of drop the meters for now. And now this just comes down to your basic algebra skills. Okay, can you solve equations? Now, let's say you were able to set up the equation, but you got this part wrong. Well, then you need to go back and review how to solve equations. But let's go ahead and do this now. So this is 2x, so that's 2 times x, and then here I got to use the distributive property. So that's 2 times 3x is 6x, 2 times this 2 is 4, is equal to 60. Okay, so now I'm looking at this equation. I need to go ahead and combine like terms. So 2x and 6x is 8x. That's 8x minus 4 is equal to 60. Now at this point I need to add 4 to both sides of the equation. Okay, hopefully you understand this. If you don't, I have tons of videos on basic equation solving in my pre-algebra and algebra playlist, but we're going to get 8x is equal to 64. And at this point, to solve for x, I divide both sides of the equation by 8. So 64 divided by 8 is in fact 8. So x is equal to 8. Now, again, what is x? Remember, x, we said let x equal the width. So we are talking about units of measure here. So x is equal to 8 meters. But again, we're not done. Okay, we were almost, we're halfway done. So you just can't stop and be like, okay, x is equal to 8, I'm done with the problem. No. What do we want? Okay, let's go back and reread the problem. We want the length and the width. Okay, so far we just have the width. That's 8. Now we need to go get the length. And remember, the length was equal to 3x minus 2. So now that I know that x is equal to 8, I could just plug that into my 3x minus 2 right down here. Okay, so my length was equal to 3x minus 2. So now that I have x, I'm going to plug in 8 for x right there. So I have 3 times 8 minus 2, or 24 minus 2 is 22. But again, we're talking about units of measure. So the length is 22 meters. Now, if you got this problem right all on your own, with pretty similar, model or whatnot, and you understood each one of these steps, then I must in turn give you a big happy face with a mohawk, an A plus, a 100%, and I think I'll give you like 2 stars. This wasn't a super difficult word problem, but it wasn't, a basic one either. Okay, but very, very good. Okay. Now, if you understood what I did, if you couldn't, if you didn't do it on your own, but you understood it, good stuff as well. But remember, don't confuse you watching me do these problems as you knowing how to do this problem by yourself. So in other words, it's very deceiving when you watch something being done. You're saying to yourself, well, that looks easy, I could do that. But if you don't practice it and actually do it yourself, you're not going to retain it. You're not going to get better at it. So it's very, very easy to get deceived and be like, yeah, I understand that. Let me move on and watch more videos. You have to, at one point, stop and actually do these problems. So, I would say, like, if you understood this and you're like, okay, now I understand this, maybe come back to it. If you're really serious about improving your word problems, come back to it, I don't know, in a day or two, and see if you could do this problem again on your own. All right, if you could do this on your own, then it shows that you're retaining this information. Okay, and all these problems, hopefully you want to put these into your notes, because that's where having problems already finished to reference is important. And the only way you're going to get better at word problems, algebra word problems, or any word problems at that is practice. Okay, just got to practice. There's that old saying, every master was once a disaster. Okay, it's true. So if you're, if you are struggling and at the end of your solution, it doesn't look great, it doesn't look like mine, don't get stressed. Okay, remember, the only way you're going to get better at something is just to keep doing it over and over and over again. There is no shortcuts, unfortunately. If I knew them, I would give them to you. However, I do have some pretty good hacks and tips that you definitely want to check out in my other videos. So there are some things like that in math, but really, when it comes down to it, The only way you're going to improve is just by complete immersion. All right, so if this video helped you out in some way, please consider smashing that like button. That helps me out. And if you're new to my YouTube channel, please consider subscribing. I've been on YouTube for over 10 years, have hundreds and hundreds, if not over 1,000 plus videos at this time organized from basic to advanced math on my playlist on my channel, all there to help you out. But my best math help will be within my Math Help program. Okay, so with that being said, I definitely wish you all the best in your mathematics adventures. Thank you for your time and have a great day.